everybody. Welcome to the Red Alert Report with the Jerusalem Connection. I'm Amy Zawi, and today we are honored to have with us Chaplain Erik Gramling, who's going to share a little bit about what he does and why, and how it's connected to the Jerusalem Connection and our founder, Jim Hutchens, and this particular book called Beyond Combat. So we are happy to have the chaplain here with us because I wanted to remind our entire network that the legacy of Jim Hutchens, his entire career and his godly walk and his experiences are still touching lives this very day, and we want you to see how that's taking effect. So, Chaplain Gramling, thank you so much for joining us today. Just to enlighten or remind our viewers, would you mind letting us know what exactly a military chaplain's role is, what the day-to-day is like, and just can you share with us what you do to serve your personnel?
Yeah, absolutely, Amy. What a joy that the Lord has brought this opportunity to talk, because I'm excited to share how the Lord connected me to Jim's book in a moment. And as I share about the chaplaincy, just these are from my own personal thoughts and experiences the past 20 years. I'm not an official spokesman today for the Army or the Chaplain Corps, but let me tell you, an Army chaplain is basically a religious leader, pastor, priest, rabbi, imam, who has a desire to serve their country and to promote the free exercise of religion. So the wonderful freedoms we have as Americans enshrined in our First Amendment, and as I like to tell people, we're not just allowed to believe, we're allowed to exercise. And I always say that it's the difference between walking through a gym and looking at equipment, and believing it would help you, and actually picking it up. And so the challenge that chaplains get to do is we get to challenge or remind soldiers, in my case as an Army chaplain, you have a right to exercise your faith, to incorporate it into your life, into your leadership. You can share it appropriately. You can talk about what makes you tick. And the Army is all about being holistic, right? And they talk about mental and emotional and physical fitness. And they also talk about spiritual fitness. And in that realm of spiritual fitness, which the Army defines very wide, there's a religious belief piece. And so obviously I say, where do I go for my spiritual fitness? I go to my religious Christian faith and my faith in Christ. And so an Army chaplain, as a Christian chaplain, I come in and I'm a faithful representative of my faith group. There's no such thing as one big religion that the Army mixes together, and I have to try to be all things to all people in that way. What I do have to do, though, as a military chaplain, is I have to provide for others. So as much as I can perform myself according to my faith and what is acceptable to the soldier, I'm going to do, right? But if I can't do it, or they don't want me to do it because maybe I'm a different faith, then my job as a chaplain is to try to provide for them. And I do that in the name of the free exercise of religion. I don't do that necessarily because I believe this is true, but I do believe that soldier has a right to exercise their faith. And I know by ensuring their right, I'm ensuring the rights of Christians. And so it's a wonderful freedom we have. And so as a chaplain, I have found just a joy that as I go about my daily activities, I'm interacting with people, have opportunities to pray for people, and of course, doing services, Sunday services or Bible studies. You have a chance to invite people there. And certainly in counseling one-on-one, I ask for permission a lot. Can I share with you how God can make a difference in your life? Can I share with you from my faith tradition how to cope with whatever you're coping with? And then in those contexts, I have total freedom to talk about Christ and to bring Jesus to soldiers, because that's my heartbeat. And that's what the Army wants me to do in an appropriate way. And then to make sure everybody else has the rights to exercise their faith. So it can be done well. You don't have to compromise. You can, of course, you can make mistakes, but the Army doesn't want us to compromise. They want us to come in and be a faithful representative of our faith group. And as we say in the Army chaplaincy, we bring God to soldiers and soldiers to God. And I love that phrase.
Wow. Yeah, that sums it up, doesn't it?
Yeah. So it's wonderful. And then we go where soldiers go, like the picture behind me, that's from one of my deployments. Actually, those people you see aren't soldiers. Those are airmen. So I had some flights of airmen attached to our transportation battalion when we were in Kuwait, and we had missions into and out of Iraq, driving big semi trucks. And so sometimes as an Army chaplain, you get to minister to airmen. Isn't that cool?
That is cool. So it's An inner, like a joint military action.
Yeah, there's a lot of joint, operations, but
Right,
that
right.
was a fun opportunity to work with airmen. So
That's great. And hopefully it doesn't have the same dynamics as when there's like an Air Force Academy, a West Point football game going
yeah,
on.
no, there's some friendly chatter. We always, especially with the Air Force.
Good, good. So in the work that you do, I'm sure you provide resources
Yes.
to your personnel. And
Yep.
and what we're excited to remind everybody here at the Jerusalem Connection is that over the years, Chaplain Gramling has 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 contacted us to send him boxes of Jim Hutchens' book
Yes.
Beyond
Thank you.
Combat.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we're happy to do that, and it is our joy to do that. And I'll share with our viewers how they can get a copy of it towards the end. I'll put a screenshot up. But explain to us. I know you obviously use the Bible as a core resource when
Absolutely.
you're
Yeah. Give away lots of Bibles. Yep.
but to have the documentation of Jim, where he in first person explains his experience as a soldier, as a chaplain in wartime in the Vietnam era. Explain to us how you came about Jim and the book and what you do with it
Yep.
and why you contacted us and said, "Can I have a couple boxes of those?"
Well, this is a great story. And Amy, you haven't heard it yet. So this is really
No.
cool. So there I was. It was 2019. I was at Fort Jackson. I had just got assigned there again. We were there once before. And I was a lieutenant colonel at the time, and I was kind of stuck in a staff job. And I'm like, I need ministry. So I went and found a younger chaplain that had a basic training unit. And I said, hey, do you need any help? Because I used to be a basic training chaplain, and it's wonderful ministry, but it's tiring. And so one day I was in his office and he was cleaning it out. He was getting ready to leave, and he had a big stack of books on his table. And I said, what are you doing with those? He said, oh, I'm going to get rid of them. You're welcome to look through it. So I looked through it, and I found a copy, not of this edition. I found a 1968. I think that's when it came out.
Yeah.
Original copy. I
It's a
mean,
black and white.
it didn't have a dust jacket, and it looked like a very old book. And I read the title, and I think maybe I read the back. I said, well, this looks interesting. Because I've read chaplain testimonials, probably half a dozen, maybe more.
Sure.
And most of the time, to be honest, I read the chaplain testimonials. I'm like, I can identify with a little bit. I can identify with that. Or sometimes I read, I'm like, wow, that chaplain's just a very different faith tradition. Didn't feel like I connected. And what was different about Jim's book is I read this and I'm like, oh, here's a guy that he's all about Jesus. He loves the Lord. And he went and in a very appropriate way, just brought God to soldiers and soldiers to God, and specifically brought Jesus to them. And so I really connected with him. I'm like, I had two thoughts. One, I've never been in combat like Jim has, right? And my first thought was, Lord, if I ever was, I hope I would have done what Chaplain Hutchens did. And then two, I thought, this is a great example of how I'm standing on the shoulders of chaplains who come before me. And so the thought popped into my head. I thought, well, the first thing was, is this guy still alive? Because I'm thinking he's got to be up there in age. And so I think I think I Googled it. So I Googled Jim Hutchens, and I found him online with the Jerusalem Connection. I didn't know what that was, so I read a little bit about it, and that's all he was associated with Beeson Seminary. And then I just sent an email, and I sent an email, and I got a response, and they said, yes, Jim's still alive. His health was deteriorating. And I just said, hey, I want to buy some books. I really like this. I wanted to give a few copies away. And to my delight, they said, we'll send you a case. And so I got this case of books, and I'm at the chaplain schoolhouse, right? This is this is like the main headquarters, the heart and soul of the chaplaincy, the Army Chaplaincy, because that's where the basic course students come. That's where the career course comes. And so I'm there. So literally with my first box, I just started walking around the halls and just started handing books out. And I even gave one to the chief of chaplains at the time, who said, oh, I remember that book. Of course, he'd been in the Army for 40 years. So it'd been a while, since probably people had mostly read that book. And then I found out, some other old timers said, oh, we used to have Jim Hutchens come down to the chaplain schoolhouse, and he used to talk to we call it Chaplain Captain's Career Course. And I'm like, isn't that cool? I didn't know that at first either. So obviously Jim has stayed connected to the Chaplain Corps. And so in some ways, it was just like rediscovering someone who used to be well known. And of course, over time, we all get forgotten, except in the Lord's eyes. But it was really fun. And then I had a ministry to brand new, we call them religious affairs specialists. That's the enlisted soldier that helps chaplains, used to be called chaplain assistants. And I started doing ministry to them during COVID because everything shut down. But I was actually allowed to start services for them right there in their barracks. And so, well, along with another soldier, or another chaplain, we started doing ministry to them. And then when they would graduate every 10 weeks, everybody who came to service would get a copy of Jim's book. And so it began there. And then now I'm here at Fort Irwin in the National Training Center in California. And I've given away not as many books, but I came here and I gave them out to chaplains. And then most recently, you might be aware, we had a prayer breakfast here, and I had a big stack of Jim's books up, and I introduced it, and Truth in Advertising, told them exactly what the book was about. And I like to use it because this exposes people to the chaplain corps. And so my hope and my prayer is that, one, they would see what chaplains do. And also, I mean, this is a great way to share the gospel, because there's,
Right.
that Jim talks about the Lord and Christ, and talks about his own salvation. So, and then one last thing that I'd like to do is, I don't know what, there's not a page number, but right, one of the first pages, there's a young Captain Dick Chegger picture here, because he reached out to me, Dick Chegger, because he was connected, of course, with your ministry. And he sent me his own personal testimony of how the Lord used Chaplain Hutchens in Vietnam to bring him to Christ. And then young Captain Chegger went on to become a 2-star general. And so
Wow.
as I share this with chaplains, I say, you just never know who you're reaching. That young private, that young captain could grow up to be Sergeant Major of the Army, or 2, 4, 5, not 5-star, but 4-star general. And so it's exciting, because the ministry you do today may literally impact the Army for the next 20 years. So that's how I've used the book. And you guys have been, I keep waiting for, I keep saying I'm happy to pay for these, but I'm so thankful that you guys make them available to me. And it's been my joy to hand them out, because I believe it's a really good testimonial of what a really good chaplain can do if they come in with the right heart and the right focus, and truly bring God to soldiers and soldiers to God.
And it's so wonderful for us to see. I mean, Shelley Neese, our president, and myself, we have personally witnessed the fruit bearing of Jim's entire life, and all of the ministries and the church he pastored, and just his decades of service to the Lord in a variety of capacities. And it's so exciting to see that fruit those seeds are still bearing fruit.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
it's so exciting to see how the Spirit moves in that way. And this edition of Beyond Combat that we've been sending you, it actually, even though it's an updated edition from that original copy that you had, this one says Chaplain Colonel, U.S. Army.
Right.
But we have still copies left, and people can buy them, not buy them, but they're gifts with donations. And if you all do decide to go to our website and purchase a copy or more of this book, please know that we are using these funds to supply those books and the shipping of those books to Chaplain Gramling, so that those recruits and officers, or whoever he's touching base with, can get it. And we are researching right now, because we have only a limited number of printed versions left. We are researching a reprint, and we will update that to Brigadier General, because
I know.
so he did retire as Brigadier General, as well as perhaps making it a downloadable, an ebook. So we are working on that research right now. So we encourage our network, if they would like to contribute to those efforts, to continue having hard copies to send to the chaplaincy, as well as an e-copy. I personally am a book person, and I think for people, for men and women in the Army who might go back to their barracks
Go to
in
the
the
field,
evening,
yeah,
or in the field, the book is better. But we also, in the process, if we had it as an ebook, at least it would be available to the greater public more quickly. So I just wanted to let our network know that your contributions will go towards those efforts to continue those those words from Jim that are spirit inspired still continue to touch the next generation. I'm sure, Chaplain Gramling, you have recruits as young as what, 18, 20 years old that you're touching, as well as
Right.
meetings and events with officers who are further along in their career and are still seeking guidance and seeking inspiration.
Yeah.
Um, Even if they're not even in the chaplaincy per se, but just, as service
That's
members.
right. Because it's wonderful. The more that leaders understand who chaplains are and what we do, the more doors they open to allow us to do ministry. And so that's the key, because we
It
really
is the key.
we flourish under good leadership that enables us to go and do the things that we're skilled to do, and
Right.
what we're called to do.
And
That's the
and
big
and
thing,
we
right?
want to continue to pray for the continued freedoms that you
Amen.
enjoy and
Yep.
that you can exercise with our service members, and like all things, we pray for our government all the time so that those values
Excellent prayers, and
and those policies maintain their integrity and aren't altered,
yeah,
because our service members enjoy far more freedoms than those of other nations. I'm sure that service members in other countries don't get to exercise their faith or explore their faith in any way. So we're
we're
thankful that
blessed. We're blessed.
we're blessed, and we're thankful that you have dedicated your life to those efforts, and we want to support it. We want to support your efforts,
Thank
um,
you, Amy.
and continue with using Jim's work as a resource for those efforts.
Yeah.
Um,
And I just want to say, if anyone's watching this that says, hey, I never thought about perhaps doing ministry in the military, I would just encourage you, don't believe always what you read on the news, especially some conservative news. It tends to make things sound worse than they are because they want the clicks, right? So the reality is there's wonderful freedoms for anyone to come into the Army as a chaplain and the other services, and to live out their faith and to do it in a proper way. And I found that I have had opportunities to obviously I'm a Christian chaplain, so I've had opportunities to share Christ with people who never would have walked into my church when I was a civilian pastor. So it's a different type of
that's neat.
ministry. Yeah, it's different, but it's wonderful. And if you'd like to learn more about how God brought me into the chaplaincy,
Right.
Amy will be sharing a link for you to
Yes.
watch my
I
story.
will be sharing a video link so you can watch Chaplain Gramling explain his personal walk and journey, which will be an encouragement to all of you, I'm sure. And Jim, I'll also dig up a picture and share it here. Jim is actually buried with Pat on Chaplain's Hill in Arlington, Virginia.
Oh, that's
And
neat.
it's a beautiful location, and he is with some chaplains of other faiths beside him, including a rabbi. And his hill overlooks a section of the members who passed in Vietnam that were actually part of
Wow.
his brigade. So he's still watching over his men,
Hmm.
and
Special.
just wanted to share that with everybody too, that God it works in both material ways and symbolic ways, and
Yeah.
we enjoy rejoicing in that. Chaplain Gramling, thank you so much for your time today, and we are
My
excited
pleasure.
to stay in touch with you and have you back in the future and let us know what's new or unique or anything you'd like to share with us.
Okay, Amy, thank you.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure today. Thanks. And Lord bless your ministry.
Thank you. Shavua Tov.